we have news and good news. Make sure you stick around for the full video. James FISHBACK first proposed Doge refund checks. On February 18th, MUSK, a senior White House advisor and major donor to Trump's re-election campaign, posted on his social media platform, X, that he would check with the president about the possibility of returning government savings directly to taxpayers. The idea of a Doge dividend was originally suggested on X by an investment firm CEO who has reportedly advised Musk's government savings initiative. James FISHBACK, from the firm Azoria, shared a detailed 4-page plan, proposing that Musk and Trump could allocate 20% of $2 trillion in government savings to approximately 79 million U.S. taxpaying households, potentially distributing around $5,000 to each. The proposal targets only net payers of federal income tax for 2025, meaning lower-income Americans would not receive a refund.
20%. We hit our $2 trillion target. That'll be $5,000 each. Sounds great. Musk said, I'll take it to president. So with the president, he loves the idea. Remember during the pandemic, he wanted to sign everybody's check. It wasn't even his money. Won't be this time either. But what a great idea. Can they do it? Should they do it? Let's bring in the man who deserves the credit for the idea, James FISHBACK. There he is. Could you have ever imagined when you first suggested this idea that you would be here with me discussing why President Trump is saying that this is now definitely going to happen?
Well, Chris, good evening. It is a humbling and honoring day to have the president's endorsement on this idea. I'm appreciative of the credit, but I got to tell you the truth. The credit goes to President Trump. Doge, this savings would not be possible without his leadership. We put it to paper, but President Trump is going to be the one to execute it, and he deserves the credit for it.
So, James, Bill O'Reilly doesn't want the check. I want the check. I'll take his check too. I don't know how it works. But here's the thing. As you know, right, you're an investor, and you know when you sit at the table, people want you to underpromise and overdeliver, okay? The idea, why? Because then they're happy with the surprise. Here, isn't there a concern that setting that target of $2 trillion is way too high? And that people think they're going to get $5,000, but now if you don't get the $2 trillion, they don't get the $5,000.
Well, it's interesting, Chris. I don't think it's actually too high. I think it's totally reasonable. But here's the thing. The Doge dividend check that President Trump endorsed today, that is going to help us get the $2 trillion, and here's why. We're going to incentivize everyday Americans, whether they're in East Palestine or in East Baltimore, to step up and say, there's waste, there's fraud, there's abuse in my community. Report it to Doge. Why? Because the more money the Doge saves, the bigger the Doge dividend check is. Chris, look at how successful Doge has been under Trump's leadership, with just Elon Musk and a dozen engineers eating Chick-fil-A and drinking Red Bull, sleeping in the office. Now imagine deputizing 100 million Americans to be the eyes and ears on the ground. When I was growing up, I took my grandfather, a World War II vet, to the VA for his checkups. And I got to tell you, I saw waste, I saw fraud, I saw abuse. I didn't have Doge to report it to, and I didn't have an incentive to report it. That's not the case with the Doge dividend. Every American can step up, report fraud and abuse to Doge directly via X, and we'll see the savings go up, hit $2 trillion, and we'll see the checks dispersed next summer. And absolutely, President Trump's name and signature should be on it, because this would not have been possible without his leadership.
I like the idea, obviously, of finding waste, fraud, and abuse. And I like to see something, say something extension. As you know, there are lots of different places people can go to alert the government to what's going on. Whether or not they do anything about it is where you're promising that Doge will be different. My other question is, isn't the point, though, what Musk brought up later in the day after the first flush of this idea, which is this has got to go towards the fiscal crisis that this country is in. Everybody wants a check, of course. I'm not saying no check. But what matters more? Sending a check to people or lowering the deficit and trying to make a dent in the trillions and trillions that we owe in debt?
We can do both. We absolutely can do both, Chris. We're $37 trillion in debt. which is why our proposal calls for 80% of that going to pay down the debt and only 20% going directly to taxpayers. Let's not forget, this isn't a handout. This was taxpayers' money that was sent to D.C. in the first place. It wasn't sent to D.C. to then be quickly sent to Myanmar for a DEI musical or Colombia for a transgender opera. It was sent to D.C. to support Americans. And guess what? The American heartland is crumbling. Our roads and bridges are in despair, and veterans everywhere you look are being denied essential health care. And so the American people deserve compensation, deserve restitution. That's the first point. The second point is we need to restore the trust between taxpayer and her government. We can never balance the budget if the taxpayer feels cheated. And guess what? They do, given what Doge has exposed in just the past month. Chris, we're 1 month into Doge, and under Trump's leadership, we've already saved $55 billion. Let's let this experiment run for another year and a half, get to $2 trillion, and send every American a check for $5,000 saying, we are back. The government is accountable, respectful, and honest again. That is what the golden age is all about.
On February 27th, 2025, James FISHBACK posted, "Just had an amazing call with Ron Paul. We discussed Doge dividends, fiscal responsibility, and the future of free markets." He also shared a few seconds of the call.
Hello,
Dr. Paul, good afternoon.
it's James.
Yes, it is.
Oh, good. Nice to visit with you today.
Likewise. What a pleasure to speak with you. I cited you in high school debates too many times to count. This was 15 years ago.
Did you get into trouble?
I did get into some trouble, but I held my own, Dr. Paul.
How bad? Hello.
Elon Musk has suggested that American taxpayers could receive a $5,000 refund from the federal government, despite a lack of support in Congress, which holds the power over national finances. Shortly after Musk introduced the idea, President Donald Trump addressed investors at a conference in Miami on February 19th, stating, "There's even under consideration a new concept where we give 20% of the Doge savings to American citizens and 20% goes to paying down debt, because the numbers are incredible." Musk and Trump's remarks sparked excitement among Trump supporters on social media. Some people think of this proposal as a bad idea. The U.S. Doge Service Temporary Organization, established by Trump through executive order, emerged from Trump and Musk's shared campaign promise to create a Department of Government Efficiency aimed at cutting up to $2 trillion in federal spending, a target that Musk has since retracted. Doge claims on its website to have saved the government an estimated $65 billion through fraud detection/deletion, contract/lease cancellations, contract/lease renegotiations, asset sales, grant cancellations, workforce reductions, programmatic changes, and regulatory savings. Doge.gov features a wall of receipts, or entries that must be individually viewed to reveal claims, and sometimes screenshots, of what the temporary service organization claims to have slashed. Entries purport Doge canceled access to news subscriptions and other resources for federal employees, nixed numerous contracts, and terminated leases for federal office spaces around the country. "A lot of it is smoke and mirrors," Dalek said. "If you're really trying to save the government money, why would you fire 7,000 IRS employees as tax season is approaching, which, is going to hinder the ability of the IRS to collect the taxes that every year go unpaid?" He added, "An NPR analysis of more than 1,100 entries on the Doge website found that the temporary organization fell way short of its savings claims. The analysis, published February 19th, calculated only $2 billion in actual savings. According to the Associated Press, 21 employees resigned in protest from the U.S. Doge Service. The department was previously the U.S. Digital Service, which handles government technology, before Trump renamed the agency. According to Matt Dalek, a presidential and political historian at George Washington University, Musk and Trump are not even close to finding $2 trillion in savings. You can find some savings, but compared to the overall federal budget, it's a small amount, Doge explained. The Trump administration has already eliminated thousands of federal jobs, mostly affecting probationary employees, though the exact number remains unclear. Under Musk's direction, the White House cut positions and contracts related to diversity programs, significantly reduced the U.S. Agency for International Development, and nearly shut down the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The Doge initiative and the Trump administration have faced protests and lawsuits over the temporary organization's access to sensitive data and employee records, which ultimately led to the firing of thousands of federal workers. These cuts are more ideological than practical, and they're not really aimed at achieving significant cost savings, Doge said. Most federal spending goes to Social Security, Medicare, and defense, areas that Trump and lawmakers are typically reluctant to reduce. Democrats have argued that the latest budget proposal from House Republicans also targets Medicaid, a federal state program that provides health care to low-income Americans. However, Trump has stated that he does not want to cut Medicaid benefits. Many ask, can Trump cut checks without Congress? Americans have received refund or stimulus checks in recent years. Both the first Trump administration and former President Joe Biden signed laws that included direct payments to households as part of COVID-19 pandemic relief efforts. In 2001, former President George W. Bush issued rebate checks to taxpayers as part of his tax plan, which Congress passed. Additionally, in response to the economic slowdown in 2008, Bush sent out another round of stimulus checks. While experts debate whether presidents can unilaterally direct spending through executive orders, it is unlikely that the Oval Office can send direct payments to Americans without Congress appropriating the funds, as was done in these previous instances. Trump and Musk are doing things that are likely illegal or unconstitutional, and they're still going ahead with them. But if we look at the constitutional realities, what the Constitution says, and what Congress's power is, sending checks to people is not something the administration can do on its own, said Doge. The White House did not respond to a request for additional details regarding sending direct payments to taxpayers. The proposal for a Doge dividend, which would allocate 20% of government savings to taxpayers, has garnered support from President Trump and Elon Musk, and it may soon be codified into law, the Post has learned. James FISHBACK, the 28-year-old hedge fund manager behind the idea, told the Post that he met with Musk last week and began discussing his proposal with lawmakers earlier this week. The president supports this, and Elon is on board with the idea of incentivizing people to report waste, fraud, and abuse, FISHBACK said. The proposed bill will be introduced in the next few days. This was a post on February 27, 2025. This means that, at present, there is no certainty about releasing funds to American taxpayers. However, in an earlier statement, FISHBACK stated, Americans would receive the funds by summer 2025. If the distribution of funds depends on finding 20% savings from cutbacks, sources indicate they are far from reaching that goal. Additionally, the proposal for the dividend funds requires backing, and although Trump and Musk is on board and all for it, many believe Congress will not approve it. So, this is in the works. Just stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe and share this video. That way you'll be notified